So after the whole back and forth with Brian Steele, gives him contempt. They come to defend him, and apparently he's going to be doing weekends, and we'll see if it actually happens. Then we continue, and all of a sudden we see another explosive moment. The firing of a attorney in court.
That's right. Kenneth Copeland's lawyer, we know her as Miss Bumpus, and she showed up because Melnick on Friday, after they do the whole thing and all that, and Copeland says, I plead the fifth, and they take the jury out and the mistrial motion. Melnick come up there, and he's like, Judge, I got these non-refundable tickets. I can't be here on Monday. And the judge is like, well, I'm bringing Copeland here on Monday. You better be here on Monday.
Wait, non-refundable tickets to what?
He didn't say, man.
He probably was going to the Chris Brown concert.
You going somewhere.
Yo, you know Chris Brown going to be in Jersey today? Like, yo, I was trying to get tickets. It's sold out.
Yo, you can't get me some tickets?
No, this is what they told me. They said I had to ask before. Like me, I'm so late with it. I asked today. Chris Brown's going to be at the Prudential Center tonight. Anyway, sold out tickets to what?
So he didn't say, but long story short,
it's not even a thing. You could tell like the judge, hey, yo, judge, yo, I have a date at 8, or I like tomorrow I'm going to see a bad bitch or whatever the hell, or just make it whatever. And the judge might consider it.
Well, in fact, there's a process where you're going to put in writing in advance a couple months the days that you're not going to be available for whatever those commitments might be. So in this case, Melnick back in December of last year had said that these are his vacation days. He's bought these tickets. He's not going to be available. Judge is like, well, I'm bringing Copeland in on Monday. You make your choice. You're here or you're not here. That's not going to be something that's like reversible error, right? Like that's something an appeals court would look at like, oh, maybe the judge should have let him, but he didn't. I'm not going to overturn a conviction on some shit like that. Whatever it happened. So the judge is like, look, if you're not going to be here, that's on you. Don't be here. And Melnick's like, all right, I'm going to send Ms. Bumpus. Ms. Bumpus comes on Monday morning. She's in the ex parte meeting that they have. Copeland starts testifying. Steele does his whole shit. Thing stops. The next day, Bumpus is like, yo, I can't be the lawyer no more. And the judge is like, what do you mean you can't?
Why do you think she did that?
So we don't know. She didn't say. But what's interesting is how the judge reacted with all of it. So she's like, yo, I can't be the lawyer no more. Judge looks at Copeland. She's like, yo, you want this guy to be your lawyer and this woman to be your lawyer? And then Copeland's like, nah, she fired. And then the judge has a problem on his hands. The judge has a big problem on his hands because the judge is being accused of tampering with that witness with the prosecutor. And now that witness's lawyer is going to be out of the picture. So he's going to go forward unrepresented. And the judge is like confused. He's like searching the law. I think this was day 89. I encourage y'all to go watch day 89.
I saw him on the computer. You think he was searching like law?
He has so many long pauses. There was a pause of about 3 minutes. There was another pause of about 5 minutes where he's just stuck. Like he does not know what to do. He doesn't know how he wants to play it because it's just gotten so deep. And so with Ms. Bumpus, he's like, yo, I'm looking at the law. There's a rule that requires a 10-day consideration period. You've probably seen this or heard about it. When your lawyer wants to stop representing you or you want to fire your lawyer, it's not like they just do that. The court has to get involved. And he's like, yo, I'm looking at this rule. I think we have to wait 10 days, Ms. Bumpus, before this can be official. I want you to file your motion. One of the defense attorneys gets up. He's like, Judge, you're wrong. The rule says this. He can consent to get rid of his lawyer immediately if he wants. You just have to have him do that. So the judge has him in writing that, hey, I don't want Ms. Bumpus anymore. And boom, Ms. Bumpus is out of there.
Wait, so what about the 10-day consideration period?
The judge is wrong. The judge initially spent like 30 minutes reviewing the law and saying, Ms. Bumpus, you're going to be stuck here for 10 days. He even calendared a date. He said in 10 days we're going to have the hearing on this. And then when the defense lawyers gets it, he's like, Judge, that's not what the rule says. That's what the rule says. And then the judge's like, all right, I'm going to let him out. Let Bumpus out. And Copeland continues unrepresented. So right now what you have is Kenneth Copeland is testifying, I believe, under a mistaken false impression of what type of immunity he has. Okay, with no lawyer representing him, advising him, and he just winging it.
Now, I mean, as you explained that seems like grounds for all type of reversals or appeals or, hey, listen, what the fuck is going on? Let's look on a macro perspective. You know, obviously this is a very intricate and important interval. In this case, at this juncture, where do you see this case going? I've talked to so many other attorneys, And it feels like they're all sharing the same sentiment. I wanted to hear what you had to say.
So one thing's for sure, and you can tell by the way everybody's acting, is this is the critical juncture. People are laying it on the line. They're sort of playing all their cards and doing things like that maybe they're not even allowed to do, but they feel like this is it. This is the moment. I got to do it now. And then, there have been enough things that have happened that have raised, serious red flags. First, you have this idea that on the stand, after Mr. Copeland has said, I plead the fifth, the judge continues in a back and forth colloquy where he, in my opinion, confuses Mr. Copeland and then gets Mr. Copeland to say, all right, I'll tell it however you want me to tell it. The judge should have understood that what that meant is I'm going to plead the fifth. Then they all go out into the hallway. Again, people hear Mr. Copeland say he's going to plead the fifth, and yet they still let Copeland take the stand and say, I plead the fifth. That seems like grounds for a mistrial. Second, you have the ex parte meeting the day on the Monday after he spent a weekend in jail, after you confused him, made him say, I'll take the fifth in front of the jury. You have an ex parte meeting with Bumpus because Melnick's out of town on vacation. You don't tell the defense, and you start telling this witness about how much time he's going to spend behind bars if he continues to invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege. That ex parte meeting, the fact that it did not happen within the presence of the defense attorneys and what was said at that meeting could be another grounds for a potential mistrial. And then you have the treatment of Brian Steele. And this is not the only issue that has happened with Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele, there was a moment, you guys have probably seen the clips, where Mr. Steele goes up to the judge and he said, in front of the jury, you shot my credibility. You were making statements about me and my conduct and my behavior in front of the jury, making me look bad, and that's not appropriate. Followed up with jailing Mr. Steele potentially for 20 days on the weekends of this trial. That can't possibly be a situation where appeals court can look at it and say, oh, you had the right to counsel. An appeals court could look at that and say, man, you deprived this man of the right to counsel if you have him working on this case full time. He knows everything about the case. He spends all week, Monday through Friday there, and then he's jailed over the weekend. That's not a functioning human being.
The judge tried to make the argument, hey, well, you're a young thug. You have other lawyers. They could pick up the slack. I'm wondering how that's treated because, we've seen these huge cases with high profile people where there's like 8 lawyers, but like there's usually the lead lawyer.
That's right.
Right? In the eyes of the court, usually, is it like, hey, all these lawyers could do the same thing? Or is it like, hey, listen, this is the main guy here, and he's the person who's raising the motions, he's cross-examining, or he's, interrogating the witnesses. He's important. Is it looked at like anyone could do the job?
The main guy matters, and that's why the judge walked back his initial sentence of immediate jailing, because he knows that he needs to have Steele in that courtroom sitting next to Jeffrey Williams if any chance of this trial holding up on appeal. So I mean, the potential. There was even a moment when Ms. Bumpus wanted to withdraw, and the judge is like, "Yo, you want Bumpus?" The judge, Bumpus is like, "Yo, we want to come up and approach," and the judge is like, he's like, wait, am I going to have a meeting right now in court with just Bumpus and the prosecution? And he invites them up, all right? So Bumpus is like, yo, can we approach? And he gets stuck. He's like stuck for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. He's like, And then he's like, all right, come approach. And he says, state, Bumpus, come approach. Tells the defense to sit there. They're all up there. Defense starts going nuts like, bro, you about to do this again? You going to do another ex parte meeting, this time in the courtroom where we don't hear what you're talking about? And the judge is like, all right, go back. Don't do. I mean, just tilt behavior. Now, the question will be, when will an appeals court look at any of this stuff? So they're going to keep making motions for mistrials. They're going to keep building their record. But procedurally, when will this all get in front of an appeals court? That's an open question. I can't answer it, but we'll see.
Okay. Let's try to extrapolate and maybe like kind of predict a bit where this is probably going to go, because it's an important juncture. This still might go on for a year, but I do think that what's happened in the last week or so is so flagrant that it will taint the entire process, even if it continues to go forward, or if it goes forward and gets a certain result, especially on appeal. Do you think this results, and this is just guessing here, right? Just from your purview, right? Do you think that this will get to a jury verdict? Do you think that at some point the judge will either recuse himself or grant a mistrial? Or do you believe that, there's going to be some other body, maybe an appellate court, that steps in to say, let's hold up. There has been too much bullshit going on in here. We need to address some of it.
I think there's a possibility that you'll see a stay at some point where an appeals court says that before this continues, we want to take a quick look at it and issue a ruling. Not sure if that will happen. The bigger question, Ak, is as everybody's talking about all these evidence issues and Fifth Amendment issues and conflict issues and this and that and everything else, the prosecution still has a RICO case to prove. Okay, and this RICO case involves acts dating as far back as like 2012, 2013. That jury's been sitting there for 9 months. They're going to sit there for what, another 6, another 8? I don't know a single person who's followed that trial who can tell you anything about what's happened from an evidentiary perspective. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long, long time to get all this evidence in. And at the end of it, do you have the jury with you? Are they still there? Can they speak to it? So that's going to be a whole separate question. The bottom line is that if you're the defense, you're fucked because you've been sitting in jail while all this happened and you've never been proven guilty. And Doug's been sitting there for 2 years. He might sit there for 3 years. And even if this shit goes to the jury and you get a not guilty, or if this goes to an appeals court and you get an appeal win, did you win after you did 3 years' time? What did Lucci get